Last week, we took a look at how the external operating environment and the industry structure impacts a firm's performance. This week, we're turning to the firm itself. We're going to take a look at how a firm organizes and positions itself within a market to create the most value. What do I mean by value, and how does a firm create and capture the most value possible within an industry? First, let's back it up and review some basic microeconomics. Imagine you're a producer of widgets. You face a market with a number of individual buyers, all of whom have different price points in their mind that they'd like to pay for the widget. So the maximum price that they would pay is called a buyer's willingness to pay. This demand curve reflects the maximum willingness to pay of various consumers. As soon as the price gets beyond a consumer's willingness to pay, they drop out of the market, and that shows that the quantity decreases. So now let's say you're charging $100 for your widget, and at that price you can sell 20 widgets. Your cost to produce is $50 per widget. Anything in this blue box just represents your cost to produce. The blue plus the green represents your revenues. The green alone is your profit because it's all the revenues that exceeds your cost. And this maroon triangle here is called consumer surplus because it's the difference between the maximum willingness to pay of a consumer and the price they actually have to pay to secure a good. That green box plus that maroon triangle, so your profits plus that consumer surplus, is considered your firm's value added. So we measure competitive advantage relative to other firms, and a firm has a competitive advantage if it has the biggest spread between the cost it incurs, so this line here, and the willingness to pay of a consumer, this line here. That's not always necessarily reflected in the price that's charged, but if you can increase the willingness to pay, you could also possibly increase the price you can charge. So there you have it. Even if the economic logic is still a little fuzzy in your head, you have just learned the secret of competitive advantage. Essentially, you have to either lower your costs or make your product more attractive to consumers and increase the price that they're willing to pay for it. So, along those lines, Michael Porter came up with this 4-blocker of strategies. The most important division here is between a low-cost strategy, something like a Walmart would pursue, or a differentiation strategy, something that Apple might pursue. One, you're decreasing your costs. The other, you're increasing willingness to pay. The other division here is between having a broad strategy, which reaches many segments of a market, and a narrow strategy that only focuses on one niche. For example, there are some airlines that focus exclusively on business travelers as opposed to your general traveler. That would be a niche in the air travel segment. So you might have a few questions at this point. First, you might wonder, why not go for broke and pursue both a low-cost and highly differentiated strategy? Well, there is such a thing. It's called an integration strategy, but it's very difficult to pull off. You'll see some elements of this in the Trader Joe's case. Typically, though, when a company tries to pursue both the lowest cost and the most differentiated product, it doesn't end well. There's a problem of what we call straddling two strategies, where you can't really commit to either. Second, you might think, this sounds real simple on the surface, but to actually implement, it's not that easy. Well, that's true. But strategy offers one more tool that could help you think about how to either differentiate your product or lower your costs, and that's the value chain. This is another Michael Porter invention. And what Michael Porter did here was essentially organize the activities of a firm into two categories. There are the primary activities, which directly touch the product or the customer, and there are support activities, things like HR or IT, that are necessary to have a company run. but don't necessarily directly impact the product. Both the support activities and the primary activities add both cost and value to a product. It's easier to think about the primary activities, how they add cost or value to a product. But you can actually use this tool to look at a company and think about where are its strengths, value a particular function is creating, and how much it actually costs to run that part of your organization. Also, I'd note that this example you see in these slides is based around a manufacturer, but you can tailor this model for a service firm or really any kind of company. So using the value chain model, you might be able to identify some activities that your firm is especially good at, where your costs are low and the value added is high. But how do you know if that really lends itself to competitive advantage? Well, let me introduce you to yet one more model. This one is the VRIO framework. It stands for valuable, rare, hard to imitate, and organized to exploit. For any particular capability or asset of a firm, you can ask, is it valuable? Is it rare, or do your competitors have the same capability? Is it difficult to imitate? And there you might go back to the 5 forces and think about barriers to entry and how that might relate to particular assets of a firm or capabilities of a firm. And is your company organized to exploit the value created by that asset or capability? For example, there are some really wonderfully creative companies out there, but they're not able to monetize their products well. Twitter might be one example.